At 6 o'clock, here you go. Like to call this meeting to order for pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 20 here by informing all attendees that a video and audio recording is being made. If anyone else wishes to record, they must let the chair know. First up, approval of the minutes of 4/7/25.
I'll move approval of the minutes of April 7th, 2025.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, do a roll call. Dan? Dave? Ed?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Buck Donovan? Aye. Thank you. Correspondence, nothing this week, huh?
Had so many last week.
Public comment? No, Kathy?
So, some of you people are probably here and want to talk about one of the bylaws we have underway. You can save your comments for that part of the meeting, which is the next item. You're not going to miss anything if you stand up now.
No, we'll get to you he will get to you for sure. But for rules, we can't start that until 6:15 because that's how it was posted. Legal stuff, you know.
Yeah, so Kathy is good. Her husband has got to that ball, so they're going back. On
I mean, you don't see her around.
the,
Definitely, he's got wellness, welfare check. What do you think, Matt? If we can knock yours out?
I'll give it a shot.
At least start it. Yeah, at least let's start it. We might have to pause you for a while, but we'll get going on it.
Good evening, folks. Matt Hunton, Investigative Design. Nope,
nothing.
I already said.
Okay.
I submitted a site plan review application for 35 Canal Street. You have plans there. I can call my plan, basically the same colored lines, but a little bit nicer to follow. But the project involves a new business moving into the old, Liquor Liquors, that I'm sure you don't know that place. That more recently has been used, I think, by a chiropractor's office. Again, this is the exact same thing you guys have. I got colored it up a little bit. The site is relatively straightforward. It's not a very big site. Let me get these in for, 0.65 acres, so 2/3 of an acre. It's almost all building and pavement. There's not much else out there. It's got the office building, 2,400 square feet. It's got 3 storage buildings. So the proposal before you is a new business in the existing building. We are not changing the exterior of the building, not making it any bigger, no additions, no taller. They're of course going to do some remodeling inside to accommodate a new dentistry office, pediatric dentistry. I believe actually the doctor's on the Zoom call if there's any questions specific to that. As I understand the regulations, we need to come before you with site plan review for a new business in this district. DCMC. Along with that, there's a slight change in the parking configuration. That's kind of another, I don't know if it's a key point. It's probably a question that may come up. Parking's interesting there. I mean, there's parking right along the front of the building adjacent to the street. It's one giant curb cut, right? There's no true curb cut. Now, luckily, this is not a high traffic street. It's Canal Street. It's a dead end street. The most traffic is probably the dresser haul trucks that go down to the end every once in a while. Not looking at changing the front of the building. I am proposing some diagonal parking off to the side, as you can see there. That would most likely be utilized by the employees, except for I do show an accessible parking. To the best of my knowledge, there's no designated accessible parking spot there, which actually typically comes up with building code. So I picked what I consider the most reasonable, closest location to the front door. You may say, why isn't it, one of those front spots perpendicular to the street? Well, those are actually kind of steep from a acceptable regulation. You try not to exceed 2%. Those actually exceed 2% by a good amount. So I show a diagonal one kind of off tucked to the corner, or not tucked in the corner, really. It's arguably easily accessible, but it's a flatter site there. Other site changes, not changing any proposed changes to landscaping, no proposed changes to lighting. I do show a simple schematic for the sign on the building. That's in the application. That I can open it up right to you right now. If you just want to, signs often come up, right? Question about signs. I see a blank one right here. All right, when I see the application. So I'm just gonna switch to it. That's pretty much it, Peak Smiles. To be on the gable end of the building that faces essentially, West Center Street. Okay. So that's the project in less than 10 minutes, Buck.
Is there enough space to do curbing on the road,
So
like
I'd say no.
Domino's?
So,
There's more space between,
so if we start with looking at property line.
yeah, I know.
Just as a starting point, right? So from property line to face of building is probably 30 feet. So parking spot's 20, but I actually show a 5-foot path adjacent to the building. As you can see.
Yeah,
So if you park somewhere else, you can still walk along the face of the building. So that takes up 25 of the 30.
and a
You
vehicle,
really need 20 to 25 just to back out of the spot. So Domino's has the benefit, they're probably 60 feet off the road,
They are.
if not more.
Yeah.
That was a nice touch they had, because they had plenty of room.
yeah, well,
Um,
that was a required touch.
oh, very good. Well, we just don't have that ability here.
I know, it's reusing vacant space, you're gonna have to enclose the dumpster.
Okay. Dumpster enclosure?
Yep, Matt Marlino's gone, but his legacy lives on.
Oh, was that Matt?
Matt, oh, that was Matt, he was a stickler
I
on
didn't know
that, and I think it's in our bylaw now,
Okay,
It is.
okay.
yep.
That'll generally be where there's a dumpster there now, tucked up in the container.
All right,
We can do a dumpster.
let's go around the table. Dan, any thoughts?
Were you gonna do anything is there any stop for the landscaping?
Well, if you look at the plan, it's like probably 90% pavement. There's some grass in the back around those storage units. There's no proposed
Not a-
changes to
It's not a
landscaping.
pretty sight.
I don't know where we could fit landscaping, because you get back into, the building is so close to the road. Park adjacent to the street there, or between the street and the road. There's not much. I mean, if I were to propose landscaping, I don't even wish she were there. I just don't know if it's,
And that'd be
I don't know if it's the
the
intent.
front of the building mainly is just to dress it up, right? I mean, there's no way to put a buffer strip or anything.
No, not that I can see.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know if it really serves the purpose to landscape the rear of the property. That's, like behind those storage units, I just don't. I'll have to refresh my memory by looking at an aerial photo just to see actually.
Yeah.
There's about 10 feet behind those buildings. I don't know if that's,
About the little triangle next to the, adjacent to the handicap parking mat, between the handicap.
Oh. Where it's, I think I show it stripes, or show it.
Well, I don't think you can put a. plan
Oh, that guy right there?
Put the little triangle next to that.
If we, I'm not saying no, it's, it'd be a pain for plowing, no one would like it for plowing, but if the, I'll call it, like, requirement is to add some sort of landscaping, that's not out of the question. I mean,
It's almost literally a fig leaf that we're talking.
yeah, does that help? Where's my aerial photo? Here it is. See what I'm looking for.
You do have one in there?
There's an aerial photo I was just looking at. That's what you're trying to get a
Yeah.
feel for it. Yeah, I mean, do we do anything along the northern edge? But then you start to, I think, run into problems. I want room so the diagonal parked cars can back out.
Yeah, my concern is, I don't know if you want me to explain it now or wait, Mr. Chair.
Dan, we still had the floor, I think that was, go ahead, Peter.
Thanks. So we have a bylaw that says when you have parking between the building and the street, you should have a buffer strip, and I don't think it's reasonable to impose that here. But I do think the idea of having something green besides a solid wall of cars is a good concept. And
Okay.
If your site allows you to do anything reasonable between the building and the street, I think we should encourage you to do it. And it looks to me like that little triangle might be such a place.
If I had to pick a spot, that might be it.
What about at the end of the storage buildings? Are there units on the end where
I
cars?
think there is end units.
Okay, then you can't
So
do
there's
anything.
doors there. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
you're in the, might be in the property line right there too. It's close.
So we have probably from the storage units for the property line, we probably have 10 feet.
Yep. But then on the other, okay, you are.
I think what you were referring to maybe down here.
Yeah, I wondered about that, but it didn't. If there's end units, it wouldn't work.
If I had to pick a spot, it might be that triangle.
Okay.
We can give it an effort.
Yield back, you know.
Yeah,
Well done.
Yeah.
What do you,
I'm all set.
all set, Peg?
Yeah.
Dave?
No, I think it's a good reuse of the site. I'm not really for just trying to cram in a bush because the next door neighbor has one. I think everything is paved back there. As you said, to plow that thing, whenever you add anything to it, it's gonna make it a monster. So I think it's just to sit as blacktop
It
and.
might not even make it a year or two. And then we required to replant it, I guess. Play devil's advocate. I think we could agree to something. If you.
As I say, I think it's a good reuse of the site.
Yeah, that's my thoughts too. It's not ideal. It's not, there's things that we would want here that just aren't feasible. Without, but what you're proposing is better than an empty building,
Yeah,
I guess.
it is,
Right.
definitely.
Anything else, Peter?
No.
And I would just recommend what you can do with Peter.
Gordon in the.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm.
The,
fine.
the
I'm happy.
Bahamas, the owner.
Oh, okay.
He's actually gonna be the new owner of the business.
Okay.
Oh.
Be the tenant, I think essentially would be the.
Yeah, if you guys can attempt what landscape you can. I don't know what else can.
Hello, how's it going? Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, thank you for, having this town board meeting, but noted, I will speak to the landlord about that.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the site plan submitted for Bloom Lee LLC be deemed sufficient for review and sufficient for review. That's my first motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it. Oh, go ahead, please.
Dave seconds.
Very thorough, in fact.
Dan? Peg,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Peter,
I
Donovan, aye.
move approval of the site plan on condition that landscaping, green landscaping be provided in the triangle just northwest of the front door
And dumpster screened.
and dumpster screening. Yes, two conditions.
Good screen.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second
Peg seconds. Dan?
Aye.
Peg,
it. Aye.
Dave?
I still disagree with trying to cram in something green, but I'll say aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Buck Donovan.
If you're,
There we go.
usually, do we get something in writing, or is it just these meeting minutes? I just forget the process,
We can give you something, right?
because I know a special permit, you get special.
You do, you get a
You get a site plan review letter?
Bylaw
The
requires,
decision
Yes.
with the condition.
Oh, site plan review letter.
Yes.
like approval. Oh, excellent, okay, good.
I'll have that for you by then.
That's totally fine.
Now that we have a town planner, we're getting like official with that stuff now. It's
Thank you.
pretty nice.
Thank you for letting me go early, I have another meeting. Sheffield.
Fun run.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for being so thorough on these. It helps our life, helps the customer's life, and you guys are our
We're
customers.
doing it long enough that
Yeah.
you learn what works, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And, yeah, there's certain keywords we don't.
Thank you.
Uh,
1 minute.
are we?
Good, yep.
All right.
Stunning.
At this point, I'm gonna relinquish the chair, for this next, I'll let you open it, Peter.
okay.
Oh,
I won't step on it, I got it.
You sure?
Yep. And Peter Blum will take over.
Good evening, everyone. We are now in the part of the planning board meeting to consider the board's recommendation on our proposed short-term rental bylaw.
I have a pencil.
And the board has before it a draft, which is undated, but which we received tonight, which is different from the one we had last week in several ways.
It's updated on the website.
And I wondered, do the people who are here to speak about this, you seen this draft? Some of you have, some of you haven't. For me,
Anyone that emailed me or looked for it on the website, that's the most updated.
you folks don't have, you folks are not on the left here, don't have them. I don't have the draft.
We haven't been to the website yet.
Okay, all right. Can we recess for a minute, Brooke, and just make a copy for them?
I can get them one. Just give me 1 second. I can. No, I'll just give them mine. It's okay. You won't that.
Okay, so this is the public hearing portion. Before we take public comment, I'm gonna ask Brooke Healy, who is our town planner, to summarize the changes that have been made since the board last saw this. Can you do that, Brooke?
Sure. Give me 1 quick second. I'm gonna pull it up on my computer. So everyone knows, I suggested these bylaw changes because I've been asked to enforce registration of short-term rentals in order to make sure that we have a bylaw that's enforceable. I met with the fire department, police department, board of health, building department, one of the members of the select board, and also the town administrator, and several different meetings with different interested parties as well, just to get feedback, also look at what other towns are doing to try to make cohesive, changes, nothing too crazy, I don't personally think, but just make something that's enforceable. And any recommendations that I received from any of these people, I brought to the board, just so that way the board could, see what other people are doing and see what other departments want to get a better sense of what's going on around Berkshire County, because it's kind of with the state allowing it and requiring different protections of short-term rentals and accessory dwelling units. This has been a big topic in the Berkshires, especially due to our tourism economy. So, that's just a little bit of background. Since the board last saw this, the change that I made, there's only 2 changes, I believe, that I made. One of which was on the section, which is.
Is it F6?
Well, the first one was G. I guess, yeah, F6 is correct. F6 was the same.
Well, F6 previously said that STR property must be up to date with the town departments. And now it just recites, as I understand it, Brooke, tell me if I've got this right. It recites the fact that state law subjects STRs to various inspections from 3 different departments of the town. Did I get that right?
Yes.
And that's F6 on page 2.
And just so everyone, if you're looking at the bylaw, the black is all what's currently our bylaw that was voted in 2023. The red, or if it's black and white, the underlined changes are the suggested changes. I should have mentioned that as well.
So in F6, it's the STR, the last sentence, STRs are subject to inspection by the Board of Health, Fire Department, and town government officials. That's not underlined. Is that new text? Or is that existing text? Do you know?
Let me pull it up.
Okay,
All right.
all right. You can check it later. Just keep going forward, bro.
Trying to pull it up. Just give me 1 second. Let me think the other top of my head. We had in the bylaw that there should be a property manager that would be in charge, a local person basically in charge of the short-term rentals. I think that needed. The original text was that could be within 2 hours away. And there were just questions on, would that be a telephone call? Would that be driving? What does 2 hours away mean? How do we enforce that? So instead it's 30, the suggested change is 30 miles, which goes basically all the way up from, Williamstown to Connecticut border and around. Just so that way it's not like somebody on a clear day lives in Boston, 2 hours away, but an emergency happens, they need to get here. They're 3 hours and change in traffic. It was hard to enforce that. So that was the first change on the first page, which was B4. And no, F6 is the ST, that was already in the language, Peter. The
Okay.
STRs
Oh,
are
okay.
subject to
Thank you.
inspection. That was already there. We just added clarification of the regulations in the building and health and fire. After, I think this is up for the board to decide. I think we had language in this that was, would it be a permit? Would it be a license? I just think most towns just do permits for this. So I don't think that needs to go before the select board to be issued. I don't think it needs to have that full process. I think just a permit and, registration, as the board talked about
The current
before.
draft calls for the
Yes,
registration to be filed with you and then approved by the select board or not.
yes.
Thank you.
I added from the last time that we met, GC. The very last part of that was meet all laws of the Commonwealth and local ordinances, which I believe was the language that we settled on at the last meeting.
Yeah, so for those who weren't present at the last meeting, we had a discussion about when the registration happens, a floor plan has to be submitted for the short-term rental. And the question was, what has to be included in the floor plan? And the current language, as you can see on page 3, G1C, says it has to include areas where guests can utilize the STR, egress, fire extinguishers and alarm, and other requirements of the lead building department, fire department, police department, health department, and meet all laws of the Commonwealth and local ordinances. So how would they do that? How would they demonstrate that their floor plan meets all ordinances and laws?
That's what you all suggested last
Yeah,
time. We didn't
yeah.
have that there last time.
Yeah,
I think just, if the building department says that there needs to be 2 means of egresses, show on the map that there's, the 2 means of egresses, for example.
so if it shows one means of egress, then you would not accept the registration.
That would be fine with the building department.
That would be what to the
The
building?
building department would see that, upon receipt of the application and,
Okay. Okay, thank you. Keep going.
the only other change that I made from the last time we discussed was it's the new section L because, we changed things around, but it's L2, previously J2. Which instead of having the total occupancy of any on or off town water, I think after the last discussion, it was discussed that maximum occupancy for any STR on a septic tank needs to meet the Title V requirements. So I specified that even though we didn't say that before, now it's L2. So it says if served by a septic system, the statement shall describe the number of bedrooms rated, and then, yada, yada. Maximum occupancy is 2 adult persons per bedroom plus 1.
I want to ask you to go back up to the top of that page, Brooke,
Okay.
just for a minute. Talking about the Knox box, and I don't know if people know what a Knox, does everybody know what a Knox box is? Knox box is a device on the outside of your building that's accessible to the fire department. And it's actuated by a key that's kept in the fire chief's pocket or sometimes in the fire truck
In the fire trucks.
and opens, and upon opening, you
And-
discover there's a house key inside. So there's a fire and
Or
there's
an
nobody
emergency.
there. The department doesn't have to break down the door to get to the fire or the alarm.
Or, someone's having a medical call and they can't make it to the door. That way no one has to bash the doors. And this was a request from the fire chief, right? He'd like to see this. He'd like every house in Lee to have this, but this was definitely a topic of discussion. So I think when we talked about this last time, there were board members that felt that it should be potentially a requirement for non-owner occupied properties instead of everyone. but I left it the way it was because unfortunately Ryan Brown can't be here today. He's sick. But we were gonna discuss that more tonight. So I didn't change that from the last time we spoke.
Thank you, Brooke. Have you finished? Is there any more?
The only other major changes, if anyone's looking at the drafts, are that originally we had that the town clerk would receive all of this. The building department and the land use department are gonna be the main people in charge of this, and we figured just to keep it more simply, people will just register with me in the land use department. And then the building department will, or anyone that needs it will have access to it, but instead of making someone go to the town clerk first, just make me first, cutting out the middleman. And changing the registration to the end of the fiscal year, that way the building department already has a fair amount of inspections due at the end of the year. If we added our renewal at the end of the calendar year as well, it might overload our building department. And then also for us, for fiscal year, it just helps us out with our books to make sure that everything is it's still a year-to-year basis, but now it's, you know, July 1st to June 30th instead of January 1st, December 31st. And then the last change was we specifically put an amount in the bylaws of $100 a year or set by the select board. I think, and you can look back in the town of Lee zoning laws, money and you know, dollars change, values change as the bylaws age. And in order, you know, if we ever wanted to change this, instead of us having to go to the Attorney General, state of Massachusetts to get permission to change it, just striking out a specific amount. And just like anything else that we have in town, we have like, for like the planning board, we have a filing fee where the select board, you know, appoints it. So we'll keep it $100. But that way, if we ever feel the need to end up changing it, we don't have to go through the Attorney General to do so in our bylaws. But what we did vote on in 2023 is $100, and we're not looking to change that currently.
In the discussion we had about this, one of the dimensions that was discussed was what is how is the cost covered for inspections?
Yeah,
My understanding is that each of the inspecting departments is able to impose a fee for the inspection, and that the building department typically imposes a fee of $150 for inspection. And that state law requires some STRs, Matt, maybe you can help me again, some STRs once a year and some STRs once every 5 years.
Depend mostly on whether it's owner occupied or it's not occupied. If it's not unoccupied, it's the building code will treat it more like a hotel, right? And we inspect hotels every annual.
Okay,
If it's owner occupied, then intrusive.
it's 5 years then? Okay, thank you. So the fee is $150 for the building inspection. And then there's a fire inspection on top of that, or is that?
I'm not aware of the fire charges actually.
last time Ryan
But
Brown mentioned that they don't charge any extra if they're already going out the building department. It's not a charge.
Okay, and then we didn't talk with the health department to know what their fees and plans are. So.
No, I did not ask Jim. I just will say for the, I mean, personally, for my goal is I have to have a software now to monitor this. And I just want to make sure that we can pay for the software. So $100
Can
was.
you talk a little bit more generally about how this is going to work? Because I think people may not understand that you're going to be interfacing with the Department of Taxes in certain areas, with other town departments in certain areas. So you're, from my point of view, you're going to be sort of the central zipper for this whole thing, because you're going to have the database that says where are the places located
Yeah.
and how are they run, and a little bit about how they're run. And how
Yeah.
to contact them.
So it's not going to be incredibly easy at first. Like Peter did mention, there's a lot of moving parts, but eventually I want it to be, you know, someone comes and they apply to, you know, register, we look it over, as long as they meet these specific requirements that are laid out in the bylaw. You know, yes, no, you know, I pass it on, you know, say, yes, you met everything. Now it's off to building, and then it's going to be treated for, I mean, Matt can definitely speak more. Those of you who don't know, this is Matt Comer, our building commissioner, head of our building department. But, you know, as soon as it goes on from my standpoint with the permitting of having a short-term rental, anything on top of that, or, you know, we will work in conjunction with the building, with fire, to make sure that all of what we require is met. So that way we don't have a short-term rental that only has one means of egress, and has no smoke detectors and no carbon monoxide, you know, detectors and things like that. honestly, I'm not so sure how it's gonna go yet. I think it's gonna be a lot of learning what works and how to make it smooth. But it's gonna be a lot between me and the building department, a very, mutual relationship. Fire as well, but fire normally kind of just is along with building on these inspections. So it's gonna be a big ask, and we do have, from the monitoring software that we have, I can say that we have about 50 or so properties currently that are advertising on short-term rental sites. I can't say that's everything, but it's mostly, this website monitors every popular site and some odd ones as well.
So if somebody's advertising on Airbnb, the software provider may be discovering that and contact you and say they're not in the registry.
Yes, eventually we will put all of our permit numbers in there, and it'll be easier that it can flag and say, this just popped up, it's not permitted. Make sure you contact them, registered.
Right.
But it's gonna, be a.
Thank you, Brooke. Anybody on the board have questions for Brooke before we go to the open hearing part? Okay, so we're now at the part, Matt?
I just want to clarify something Brooke said earlier, the 2 means of egress is required, the SDR qualifies as the unit. So if there's a situation where you're not that, that's not a single family, so. Regardless, they got to be required to.
Sorry, I should have said that.
You say that again. The 2 means of egress is required. That's. Yeah, it was required for what the egress should look like, right? But you have to have all the tough sanitation, sleeping, living. Qualities that define single-family needs. Okay, if your SDR has all of those, then you would need to, but. Typically, if it has all that, you're probably living up that anyway. That was the only thing that I thought. Okay.
Sorry, apologies, in my mind, I was thinking of, like a split house.
Yeah.
I will tell the board before, Gordon?
Hi, yes, my only comment at this point is could you have the people with questions come to a mic? Because I might be able to understand Matt, he's far away,
Yeah.
but I usually can't understand the question. So that would be
Yeah.
appreciated. Thank you. I have nothing else to say.
Absolutely.
Thank
I
you.
think rather than use the podium, I'm gonna pull a chair up to be closer to the mic. And we're gonna be in the public hearing part now.
Also tell the board that there are 3 different comments I received. One is, I believe by someone that is here as well. However, there were 2 that could not make it that are
Okay, I'll
in
read
your
those.
packets.
Thank you. I'll
Before,
mention that.
after, I just want to make sure that they are.
Okay,
the board
so,
knows they have them.
Anyone who is interested in this project, please feel free to come forward and speak from this chair. You'll be on video and you'll be recorded, so the Zoom participants can hear you. If you have given us an email with your comments or thoughts, why don't you make reference to that? Because we haven't had a time to review those yet. And we can read them as you describe them. Ma'am, you want to come first?
Sure, happy to get first,
This is one of the.
You were the first to rise, so you can be the first to speak.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Abigail Noble. I've been a permanent resident of Lee since 2019. My parents for the past 25 years, and I believe my grandparents started coming to Oak and Spruce back in the 1940s or 50s. So I feel really strongly connected to Lee, both as an Airbnb host and as a resident. I am fully in support of all measures that relate to the safety of guests and the safety of owners. I'm fully in support of a registration fee. I'm an economist by training, so I actually think that $100 is too low if it's not fully covering the cost. But for transparency and predictability purposes, I think we do need to keep with the $100 that people expected from 2023. And we need to be very transparent and give advance notice of how the price will change over time, whether it's inflation plus 5%, or that the building fee plus the software fee makes it $250. So in like 2 years, we might raise it. I also think that it is incumbent on the town to demonstrate why We are doing this registration fee because we don't want a bad press article about STRs in the town of Lee. But I also think that Lee has a lot to offer. So one of the things that I mentioned to Brooke is this idea of a VIP hospitality card that all Airbnb hosts receive when they register. That is kind of like Lee Restaurant Week, where you can get a fixed price or 10% off at the restaurants. And it also shows the restaurants in the town that we're bringing more revenue to Lee restaurants. I also think that Lee Airbnb hosts should get a visitor card to the beach pass to the beach that they can then give to their guests. So this will attract more tourism into Lee. My position is that I do not think it is wise, and I'm an economist, this is my sense, to limit short-term rentals. I do not agree with the argument that short-term rentals limit housing for others or that it contributes to the homelessness problem. I think there are underlying factors which relate to interest rates, cost of living, income inequality that have made housing unaffordable in the Berkshires. I have other ideas on how to make it more affordable with medium-term rentals. But I think what we should do is say, how do we bring more revenue into the town of Lee, that the Chamber of Commerce, that the tax base, if we do collect registration fees, if we do have more tourism, it's good for the town. So I think that we should encourage short-term rentals in Lee. We should provide more services to the Airbnb hosts, and we should also monitor it for safety and, goodwill of guests. I have a bunch of comments on the actual, tenets of the draft, yes. So, F2, an STR tenant should not conduct an event or gathering on an STR property that includes tents or outdoor amplified music. I would actually suggest that that is a different kind of permit that costs more, let's say $1,000 a year, and then per event is $250. So there are places like the Playhouse of Westinghouse, which hosts small gatherings, and it brings in a lot of money, like, I don't know, $1,000, $2,000 a night. They could easily pay that fee, which goes to the town, and we don't really have that many wedding venues or other party venues. This would be a boon to the town. E4, I do think that it's reasonable to say within 2 hours during business days, but if someone has a problem at midnight, it's unfair to Lee families that they should have to answer by 2 a.m. So I think we should change that to within 2 hours during normal business hours, and maybe within 4 business hours on weekends. And we should expect that after 9 a.m. or after 8 a.m., it could be 2 hours. So that is E4. F, I'm sorry, you're right, F. And then going down to 9. This should be clarified as removing it from the unit, because from the property should be the property manager, and they also should demonstrate that they work with an approved trash collector contractor like Casella Rogers, whatever it might be. But I think that's important because when trash piles up, it affects wildlife.
So what would be the registration form that would answer that question? What would it look like? I would assert that I have a arrangement with Rogers for a weekly pickup. That would be.
Yeah, it could be a checkbox on the permit and then just showing proof of the contract. I do think we can ask for proof of that they're still using a trash, an organized trash collector, or that they are bringing their own trash to a town dump, but some sort of proof that they're doing that. And then should there be a problem, then we go back to them and say, we need to follow up on this. I think as well, there's something else related. With the property manager being within 30 miles, I think that's reasonable. I also think we want to have proof that the property manager, because there's some like Red Cottage and a few others that manage, there are 2 or 3 in Berkshire County that manage several properties. we want to know that if someone is living more than 30 miles away as their permanent, residence, the person who is managing it, it's an active contract. Because some people just activate the contract over the summer and they don't have someone managing it throughout the year, but occasionally they'll take an Airbnb in December or something like that. So I think we just need to know what 30 miles means. And if they're more than 30 miles, is it an ongoing contract or is it just ad hoc? This is my best friend or someone. So like something more formal about the property manager or the property manager company. And then I'm down in G. D, E, and F might all be the same information, the STR landlord's name, the booking agent's name, and contact information, the property manager's name and telephone number. This is sensitive, but I do believe we should have the owner's name on there. Because the owner is the person who eventually, is the town resident, is the liability.
Isn't that the STR landlord though?
Not always. Is landlord always the same as owner?
I believe that's how we defined it in
Okay.
the first section. STR landlord means a person, trust, or other entity who offers the use of a property as an STR and who has the right of occupancy to the premises after the rental concludes.
So if you have a trust that owns a building but is not attached to someone's name, what would you do? I think that might be one of the older,
Should we change it to owner or landlord's name? Would that fix it?
yeah. Because if they don't have an ongoing relationship throughout the year, an annual contract with a property manager, the landlord might say, not my problem, it's the owner's, whatever it might be. So I think what I'm trying to get to is we want ultimate accountability.
I just do want to say, and this was again, the bylaw, I didn't change this at all, but under D1, which is prohibited STR properties, property owned by a corporation, trust, or partnership is not allowed.
Okay.
So that is something that's existing in our bylaw.
I'm okay with that. Some people probably would want to hold a commercial rental property in a trust, but that's to the town of Lee to decide that. H, the proof of liability insurance. So there's different insurance, homeowners insurance for an owner occupied single residence as there would be for non-owner occupied. So I think we want to make clear that if it is primarily a rental property, certain things are included in their insurance policy, which include, should there be a fire, should something happen in that unit, and it's not, Airbnb provides liability insurance to the guests. But if you're doing it on your own and that person is displaced, you should be responsible for getting them replacement housing, which is what most commercial rental insurance agreements have, as opposed to just, if you're living in your own place, it will cover you if you're displaced, but it won't cover your renters. So I think we should make sure that the liability insurance, they're not using Airbnb and VRBO, which includes that insurance in the booking fee. We have proof that the landlord or owner has an insurance that covers all liabilities that could affect the guests, the town, and the neighbors. And that could be umbrella insurance as well. So I think we should look into the insurance issue.
The term umbrella policy, is that have a clear enough meaning? To
Yeah,
cover what
yeah.
you're
An umbrella policy is that should you have any guests or people visiting your property, should your gas cause damage on a neighbor's property, like the umbrella should cover a lot of that. I'm not an expert in insurance. We might want to run that by, but I know.
We have one on the board.
Oh, okay, amazing.
Well,
Better than me.
well, it's nice that the insurance part is in here. I guess it'll just be a question of what the town wants to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We wouldn't want the town to have to incur costs of an Airbnb, gas damaging sidewalks, stuff like that. So I think it's just that. I'm thinking about the town. H2, 20 days might be a short period of time. I think we should say over the course of 30 days with 3 notices issued, first try, second try, last try. And if after the 3rd notice, there's no responses, then the license and registration will be revoked, but it can be made valid if the things are addressed and approved. So I think we just want more clarity and step-by-step. Those are all my comments on that specific document. Anything else that I can clarify? Okay.
And I think Abby's email was the one email I was referencing that she's here.
Is there anything in this you want to review before you leave? And
I think I just went over all of those points. I can definitely talk about the housing crisis in Lee and some ideas around that, but that is a little bit off topic of this. That's more medium-term rentals. I do think this idea of a Lee hospitality VIP card will make Brooke's job easier of getting people to register, because I would love to be able to give a beach pass to my Airbnb guest. Oh yeah, the liability insurance. Thank you. I do think offering a 10% off with certain restaurants that participated in Restaurant Week will draw more tourism into Lee,
that might
increasing
be
revenue.
something that the chamber can do
Yeah.
more than the town. I think.
Yeah.
But I think it is hard to impose a carrot, which is you need to register, you need to pay $100, you need to submit to all these inspections before July 1st, and there's nothing you're going to get in return. So I think we should say, this is a package we're offering. And when people register, they get a folder. And here's a map of Lee. And here is,
What we have
Westinghouse,
to
where he did the first electricity. And this is where, marble that's in, the Washington Monument is. Like, give us a chance to show our guests that Lee is the best place to stay in the Berkshires. It's the gateway to Berkshires, but there's so much more than that. So a folder with tourism, all the restaurant menus, a VIP hospitality card. Let's make it easy and desirable for people to register and say, it's totally worth paying $100 or $250. I get so much. My guests keep wanting to come back. They love Lee Beach. They love the restaurants. They love this. They love that. So
I think the
Good.
question about beach passes is a really good one that I haven't.
I
thought
do
about.
too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for your
Gordon,
comments.
Thank you.
Gordon.
you're welcome. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening.
Gordon, would you like to ask Abigail?
Oh, sorry.
No, just a couple of quick comments. Number one, the beach policy already allows for guests of owners of towns to get a beach pass. So you should check in with that because that's already there. The second thing is a great idea about the card, the VIP card to go to restaurants and all that. I think that's best left to the Chamber of Commerce, and we can not that we shouldn't be putting that in our bylaw, but we certainly could have a link to the Chamber of Commerce, and it would come from the chamber. Great idea, and you should go there and talk to the chamber, the president. Good idea.
Sure. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Who's next? Come on up. You folks, all right?
No,
You're gonna-
it's primarily education. We're learning a lot.
Nobody else, really?
No.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming and showing interest. Let's review the other emails then, before we get to board discussion. So we've met Abigail Noble and we've seen her email. I have 3 others, it looks like.
One's together. There's several pages, and then there's one other.
You want to summarize them for us, Brooke? Here, here's mine.
Yeah. Okay. So, received questions regarding involving pets being brought into town by short-term rentals. How do we know if the animals are vaccinated? Will the owners carry liability insurance if someone is bitten by the animals? Will the renters be informed that their animal needs to be on a leash at all times outside of the home? Who will let these renters know that they should never allow their animals on others' property unless invited, and they pick up after their animal? And how many animals will be allowed at one time? These are all areas of concern if we have no places in rules for short-term renters and the owners of these properties.
That's from somebody who goes by MLMW. With the email at sawdust5000@gmail.com.
I'm looking for one. Okay,
Her signatures at the bottom.
yeah,
Oh,
Marcia Wood.
Oh,
Yep. And then I also got an email from Tiva Smith, and I also called me and I tried to call him back, but he would be here, but his wife is out of town and he's with his son. He wants to submit a few comments and a couple of questions. He is happy to work together with those who feel short-term rental regulation is necessary so the community is best served. I hope we can ensure that it is financially viable for hosts who have short-term rentals to continue to rent. I think the community benefits from having Airbnbs. Without them, competition is reduced in travel and the lodging markets, allowing larger hotel chains to dominate and potentially leading to higher lodging prices for guests coming to our area. Short-term rentals bring economic benefits to our local communities. Some travelers seek out Airbnbs and travel to the town specifically for the Airbnb. A study from 2022 found that Airbnb guests in the US contributed to $34 billion in local economies annually. Short-term rentals provide travelers with diverse, affordable, and unique lodging options compared to hotels. New York City implemented a strict short-term rental regulations 2023 requiring hosts to register and ban rentals in certain buildings. As a result, Airbnb listings dropped significantly and travelers reported higher costs and fewer options, often turning to more expensive hotels. In other words, big businesses / hotels benefited as they were able to charge more. Many believe that short-term rentals are responsible for the broader housing issues. While they can contribute to housing pressures in some markets, a study by the Urban Institute in 2021 showed that their impact is often overstated compared to factors like lack of new construction or speculative real estate. It seems like the town is trying to find the right balance of short-term rentals. One change I would like to see is to allow a short-term rental to be in the name of an LLC. Being able to hold a short-term rental in the name of an LLC protects the owner regardless of if it is their primary home or not. Can we change the following? And then he specifically crossed out the language in our bylaw that says, and that property is the primary residence of the entity's majority stockholder, beneficiary, or partner.
I'm gonna interrupt you for just a second, just to refer people to that. We have said generally that in this proposal on the top of page 2, that corporations, trusts, or partnerships are not eligible to be STR registrants. However, there's an exception, and it's basically for a homeowner who takes the form of an LLC that contains 1 or 2 dwelling units, and the property is the primary residence of the stockholders, beneficiary, or partner. So it's basically for a family LLC is exempted and allowed to do STRs, but corporations that own, dozens or hundreds of STRs would not be allowed in Lee. Mr. Sherman.
I address the question to what you just read. Remember the last time we went through this, it was the issue of trusts not being permitted. A lot of individuals who hold all their belongings in trust. Everything I own is part of the Harold Sherman Revocable Trust. Would that mean that I can't have an Airbnb? Many people hold family trusts to hold their real estate in revocable trusts.
Are you the beneficiary of the trust? Okay, then the exemption would apply.
Okay.
The last part says, and the property is the primary residence of the entity's majority stockholders, beneficiary, or partner. And beneficiary would be the term that applies to a trust.
Okay, I understand.
And we are suggesting, I'm not suggesting to change that from what we voted on the last time meeting that had that. This is just a comment that Mr. Smith would like to not. I want to make that clear too.
All right.
There's 2 more sentences.
Okay, go ahead.
This change will help prevent big corporations from dominating the market and protect local owners. Also, STR owners already pay a 6% local and 5.7% tax state short-term rental tax. Could we possibly eliminate any fees? That is all from Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Gwen.
And that was the only comments that I got. I did offer anyone else to ask for it to send me questions. No one else did, or comments or.
Well, if there's no further comment, I'm going to conclude the public hearing portion of this meeting. And we'll resume discussion with the board. Before I ask for board comments, I want to ask Brooke to help me figure out what the best schedule is for our work. Do we need to do a final decision tonight on this in order to recommend it to town meeting, or can we have another draft to approve later at a subsequent meeting?
Gordon, you may know this better than I. We would need to change it and have a meeting to bring it to town meeting before the select board signs the warrant. I believe the select board is signing the warrant potentially tomorrow. If not,
Okay, so it sounds like we need to decide
Okay,
everything
Gordon.
tonight. Gordon?
Gordon,
Hi, good evening, thank you. Yeah, while the warrant, discussions of the warrant signing will be on tomorrow's agenda. We could have, if you schedule a fast meeting, we can put your draft on there that you have now, and any discussions you want to change, but you really can have your final meeting within hours of when the town meeting is, as long as you come up and at the town meeting, you have to recommend one thing or another. You can recommend what's posted in the warrant with minor changes, as long as they're not substantive. So even if we were to approve the draft warrant now with this language and you made changes, it's still available to you to do. So I don't think you're under a gun for tonight, but it should be soon, because even if we post the warrant, again, modifications on the floor can happen as long as the planning board has voted on those modifications one way or another, and let the town meeting know. So I don't think us signing, if we did sign and post the warrant tomorrow, I don't think that handcuffs you from discussion, continuing short term to another meeting to do a final vote while you thought about it. It's up to you guys. I don't know
So
if that helps.
Gordon,
Yes, sir.
Gordon, we need to give you a draft for tomorrow night though, right?
they have.
That would be helpful. Oh, we
So
already
if
have
we
a
ma-
draft.
So here's
Yes.
here's what I think I'd like to recommend to the board. I recommend that we make any changes tonight that we can agree upon. And that we hold any changes in a separate bucket for consideration later if we want to make amendments to the warrant at town meeting. That makes sense, board members? Do you follow me, Peg? You follow me?
Yes, I
Jane?
think I do.
Anything that we can clearly agree on
Yes,
tonight,
Let's
let's
well,
do.
I
I think-
agree with you.
I agree with
really
you.
don't want to go to the town meeting floor with,
With amendments,
yeah.
yeah,
So
okay.
is that your
Okay,
motion?
or a substitute, really. We could do a substitute, but that would be messy too.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try to nail it down tonight then. All right, board members. Does anybody want to make a speech or an opening statement before we go through it line by line or section by section? Dan,
Statement.
you say you're happy or unhappy or,
Well, I'll wait till we get to the insurance
okay,
section,
Okay.
because I'll just make a couple suggestions.
yeah,
I'll put it that way, but
Okay.
other than that, no.
okay. Peg,
I do like the idea of giving the people that are renting some sort of card or something to, I don't know what, something, because.
something friendly.
Yeah, something friendly, I don't wanna discourage people from having. Having
Brooke, you want
this,
to comment
but
on it?
Yeah, I just want to say, I'm planning a meeting with Alex Hedinger, who's the new
Oh, right.
chamber president, and Abby and I did have a discussion before, all of these emails back and forth and, talking about this, so I do want to bring that up. And I also do want to just also say that, these bylaws were voted in December, I believe, of 2023. So I also don't want people to think that this was all right now, last minute. And that, definitely we do want to work with people and we don't just want to cut people out.
no,
So I just do want to make sure that's on record and known.
Yeah, we've had this bylaw, and
Right.
basically
Yeah.
this form.
we've worked on it for
Yeah.
a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we just
Yeah.
haven't enforced it.
Well, that's my concern. I'd like to give maybe the chamber, as you say. Yeah.
Thanks,
That'd be
Peg.
great.
Dave,
Be good.
I'm in agreement with with the whole idea of this. Don't know, the recommendations we had tonight, definitely warranted. But I don't want to make it part of the SDR, that's all. It's a bonus, that's all. And I would like to see it run as a bonus,
what,
like the cards. Like
oh, the
Peg was-
card.
yeah.
Well, maybe.
Or the discounted restaurants,
Yeah.
that's gotta be up to the chamber. And let the chamber make recommendations, because they're gonna have to deal with the owners.
Yes. Well, thank you, Dave. Anything else?
No.
All right, so I'm in the uncomfortable position of being by default, with Buck's setting aside, I'm the chair, and I also have a lot of things I want to talk about. So I hope you'll give me discretion to bring up some changes I'd like to see, even though I'm trying to chair fairly to you all. What is everyone's feeling about the suggestion that we liberalize the ownership restriction? Should we allow corporations more latitude than we have allowed them in the current bylaw? Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Question, what is that? That's D1.
D1. That was a comment that was just raised in the letter that you read.
Want to make sure I have the right.
I'm okay with it as it is, but I just wanted to make sure that the board considers this recommendation before we pass over it. Are you okay with it as it stands?
Yes,
I am. I
I'm
mean,
very much okay with it.
we discussed this before. This is one of the main topics. And I think we should, again, what was presented tonight, all good input. But I think we want to stick with what we have here.
Okay, thank you. Next item is F, that I have marked is F4. This is about the property manager having a 24-hour telephone number and respond within 2 hours. Ms. Noble suggested making this 4 hours after hours and 2 hours during business hours. And I think she suggested some other changes about possible ways to alter this. Does any board member want to take any action on that?
Well, if we were to consider something like that, could we put a requirement like the knock box? If
That'll be a
not,
separate thing I'll be bringing up in a moment.
like it's required that, you know, if the property manager is not around, that they have
Oh, yeah, well,
a knock box.
I'm gonna bring up the Knox box and we can talk about how to fix that, Dan, or not. What do you say about this 2 hour? See, in the draft, on page 1, we say in the definition that the property manager must live within 30 miles or less from the STR. And over here, we're saying respond within 2 hours. Are those, I'm not even sure those are consistent, are they?
Well, they might be out.
Well, yeah, what if somebody's out and away?
What if they're out? What if they're out?
Well,
The idea
that's,
that there's-
you know, that's a good idea.
The idea that
Maybe-
they're still located.
Maybe we should have them, they can't, you know, if they have one person, have a substitute that's available to us. To get a hold of, say, I'm the property manager, and I'm gonna be out of town. I notify the owner. And we have a second person. I realize it's gonna be adding more. I mean, every time we get done, well, this will be an encyclopedia, not just a.
Registration. You make the registry of motor vehicles look good. won't we?
I don't know.
No.
All right, leave it alone. Leave it alone right here. This F4. Not go to 4 hours, 2 hours, day or night is where we're standing, right? Okay, on we go. Paragraph F6 talks about standards and regulations, and we're adding that the applicant for registration has to show that they're complying with all standards and regulations, and we're adding building department, health department, and fire department. I'm a little concerned that this may be burdensome, but I'm willing to trust Brooke and the department that they won't make this burdensome. So I'm not going to suggest any change here, but I just wanted to note it, that I don't really expect this to require, you know, massive filings of compliance letters and detailed plans of, you know.
I think it's gonna take what the building department requires, making sure they meet those, what the fire department requires, make sure they meet that.
There,
But the
the
health
applicant,
department-
the registrant is gonna say, I meet the requirements of these departments,
And then-
and that's it, right?
Well, we can check as well.
You can check,
Yes.
but they don't have to bring in a book to show that they've complied. They can say it in a normal case.
Okay.
That's what I'm hoping you're,
If that's what the board would like.
is that what the board would like?
I believe so.
I
What do
believe
you, what do
so.
you think of that?
Well, from, when we're talking about annual inspections, we have a list, a checklist of things that are required. I don't think that an SDR specifically would require a whole lot. But I definitely think the floor plan. You know, a single family dwelling in Massachusetts doesn't require, it requires alarms basically. So as long as we show that the alarms that are in the SCR are up to date, and work properly, you know, then we have a floor plan that would show that we can confirm that, you know, your window sizing and other things, sleeping room, for instance, meets emergency rescue and like a lot of sports. It would be, the very first one would be sort of a life fact checking, but after that, the renewal process would be pretty simple.
It sounds like to me, we're going to depend on the departments.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to the registration section. We had a discussion last week about G1. It's the sentence that says after registration or renewal, it will go to the select board to be issued. And
That's.
Yeah, I think that we should not include that unless the board wants us to be.
well, I was about to say, I'm going to propose as an amendment to this draft that be deleted. And is there a second from the board members?
Sure. Yes.
Is
I
there
will second.
discussion of that? Then we'll take a vote. Dan?
Aye.
Peg?
Aye.
Dave? Peter, I unanimously passed to remove that. I make this change, or I propose this change,
Gordon's hands raised.
not,
Just,
Gordon?
just a point of order.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna discuss this. I know the public is closed. Point of order. If you're getting rid of the select board as the one issuing it, are you putting in language to say who is issuing it? Just for clarification, that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that the planning department will will accept the registration or not, depending on whether the items listed in paragraph G are complete.
And does
Is that
that include the planning board or the planning department also approving that? They're accepting it, but does it include them approving it and issuing it?
No,
That
a
was my
registration, as I understand it, is an applicant comes into an official and says, here are my papers and my assertions and my fee, and I meet the requirements to register my business. And then if they have indeed met all those requirements, then it's the obligation of the official to accept the registration and not to form a judgment on it. Gordon, the reason as I started to explain, the reason I did this was that we talked last week about what would be the standards for rejecting a registration. And I honestly couldn't understand what those standards would be after we finished discussing it. It sounded like it would be a routine thing for the selectmen that they would automatically approve it, except in some currently unforeseeable circumstance. And that to me converts it into a discretionary license without standards. And I prefer to keep it as a registration that once the forms have been completed and the fee is paid, it becomes an obligation on the part of the official to accept it.
So my question isn't about who's going to do it. The issue is, if you register, does that mean you get nothing back that you can put on your wall that says you actually were approved to go ahead and move forward? Is, like what lets people know you can go forward and go ahead and rent?
We haven't prescribed what the certificate is going to look like.
Oh, well, that was my question, because before it was going to be a board of selectmen would have to issue something. And so I was just trying to see if you're taking that language out, are you replacing it with anything, even if it just comes from the planning department to say, hey, there you go. You know, you get a piece of paper from the planning department, or, you know, I'm just trying to figure it out for also for the enforcement agents. You can, I just don't want to see it missed where, yeah, I applied already and nobody rejected it, so I'm just doing this, you know?
No, I think that there's going to be an action by the official to accept or reject the registration.
Which
You either-
official?
Well, the planning department.
Okay, as long as there's an acknowledgement and something in writing, I'm not opposed to this. I'm not trying to, you know, testify either way. But I think just for enforcement purposes and everybody's understanding, some kind of document that says we've received it and you're approved to continue renting. You know, you're approved by your registration, some kind of language, and I don't know what that is, Peter. Thank you.
Thank
That's
you.
all.
Thanks, Gordon. You know, I don't think any of the drafts ever said there had to be a piece of paper issued saying that the registration was completed. But it is a good idea, and perhaps we should say it. Dan?
Are we is there gonna be like a town database where these are, once it's been approved, let's say, and it'll have the location and the location owner?
That's a
website?
question for Brooke about the database.
Like a public view.
Yeah, so
It would have to be, you'd have to submit a records request. Or reach out.
So the data will not be on the town website as currently envisioned. But Brooke, can we give them a certificate of some form that we
The
knock together?
too, sure.
Sign and say accepted on, you know, the,
Permit to operate.
well, it's a registration that allows them to operate. Yeah, I resist the word permit because permits can be discretionary, and this is intended to be, tell us you're there and that you're doing the right thing and not discretionary. But that's my view anyway.
So what should we put in for the
Should we
language?
put something in to say that the planning department will issue a certificate of registration,
I think so.
The land use department.
the land use department? Okay,
So. In G1, do you want to say each STR landlord shall register each STR with the land use department and upon. I don't want to say it upon completion.
how about in, on the next page, on M2,
Yeah, and
little M2?
Okay.
New 2, old 3. We're already talking about, it says each STR registration received by the land use department in proper form and accompanied by the required fee shall be assigned the Lee STR registration number, which should be consistent from year to year. And a certificate of registration shall be issued. Does that work?
Great. Can you repeat, just so I can write that down?
Okay, so are you at the place?
Yes.
Yeah, and then adding at the end of that sentence, and a certificate of registration shall be issued.
May I read it for the board just to ensure I have that correct?
Sure.
So the required fee shall be assigned to a Lee STR registration number, which shall be consistent from year to year, and a certificate of registration shall be issued. Should I put by the land use department, or is
No,
that
it's already-
redundant?
I
Okay.
think it's already implied, but. put it in if
It's
you
in the
think
beginning of the.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that I have what the board would like written down.
Everybody okay with that, board members? Dan? Dan, okay. Peg? Dave? Okay. All right, going on. In G, back to G on page 3. The new fee, it's in light print. We're adding that the other requirements, the floor plan must show other requirements of the Lee Building Department, Fire Department, Police Department, and Health Department. And I'm not sure what that requires, but I'm hoping that it doesn't greatly complicate the registration process. The same issue I was talking about before, that demonstrating compliance with 4 different sets of regulations, or potentially 8, because there's 4 here and 4 in Boston, could complicate this thing and make it a lot more onerous than we were hoping. But it's okay. I think we'll just see how it goes. And in, let's see, Brooke, we have a lettering problem inside G1. We have two Cs. Have an old C and a new C.
Yeah.
So
Got it. I will
you're gonna
change.
change those, and then what is now shown as D, and which will become E. It says the STR landlord's name and contact information. And I think Ms. Noble suggested owner or landlord instead of landlord. Is that okay with everybody? That this is the STR, when the registration comes in, the registration will disclose who the owner or landlord is. I think we talked about this. I'm assuming
did.
silence means acquiescence.
So you only need one or the other.
Yeah, yeah.
I
What
thought
thoughts?
we wanted both.
I thought we wanted both.
Oh, well,
Oh,
I want both, but the applicant need only provide one. The applicant for registration,
why is that?
because the landlord and the owner are in 99% of the cases the same thing.
Well, then it should be landlord or the owner
In
and,
our definition of STR landlord, doesn't that mean an owner? In our
No, I
definition
thought
section?
so. I thought so, but,
So write STR landlord or owner.
all right, I'm
in
gonna let this
section?
go. Let this go.
No, I'm just trying to get clarification just so I understand.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to get a name and an address of somebody that's the responsible property interest holder. And
I mean, I think on a registration form, if you ask for all these things and it's the same thing, you can just write, same, see as, see above. I don't necessarily know if repeating information is the worst thing ever.
so you're suggesting landlord and owner possibly?
Yeah.
Okay. Is everybody okay with that?
If the board would like that again.
Dan, what is your preference?
Leave it.
Leave it where it is?
Yeah.
Peg?
yes,
Dave?
Yeah.
Leave it where it
Yes.
is. Okay, that's the majority. It's staying where it is. Liability insurance, do we want to say anything in more detail about that than we have in this current draft? Anybody want to make a motion on that? I'm happy with it as it is, but I didn't want to bypass it without a chance to discuss. Dan?
The only thing I would say, if the town is gonna be collecting proof of insurance, which I would support, let's make sure it's licensed by, or the proof is issued by a licensed broker or agent to do business in the state of Massachusetts.
Wouldn't it be a crime?
It's okay if your agent's from California, but it should come, because if you've seen the Foxit programs, people can doctor forms these days pretty easily. So if you get it directly from an agent, you'll know they have the proper coverage. And then Abigail's questions about liability and certain things of that, those are actually part of a homeowner's application. Do you have a short-term rental? Or if you answered yes, that changes the program you'd be eligible for. So that's what I would say, because if they're asking their agent for proof of liability for an STR, they're gonna hopefully get them insurance to cover them if they have.
So is your suggestion to add a requirement that the
Just
certificate?
that it be however they come in and however you're gonna track these, that it's done by a licensed agent,
So
licensed insurance agent.
Then the state.
Brooke, I'm going to suggest
A
language.
proof of a certificate of insurance, or
And on the proof, it should say whether or not they're licensed insurance.
Can I,
it would come directly from them. Don't,
do you have language you two worked out just now?
No, I was just asking for clarification on how one would receive this.
I'm
That I understood.
going to suggest language and see if it satisfies what you're after. Where it says proof of liability insurance, I'm suggesting adding from an insurance agent's license in this state. Is that the idea that you want to express?
well, yeah, registered. You can
Licensed or registered?
you can be a non-resident agent. You could work from everyone, but as long as you're licensed to do insurance in Massachusetts, and make sure it comes directly from the insurance carrier or the
Okay.
agent.
So the language I'm suggesting is from an insurance agent licensed in this state. It sounds to me like that meets what you just said.
Yeah.
Okay. From an insurance agent licensed in this state. Okay,
Hmm?
good.
Are we removing, after as required and so forth?
No, put it in,
Okay. Just wanna make
put
sure.
it in after insurance. All right, on to the last page. Hooray. Okay, a Knox box at the top of page 4. I'm going to suggest that we limit this requirement to STRs owned by a non-resident person or a corporation, partnership, or trust.
I'm in favor of that.
I'm in favor of that.
Dan, you want to say anything?
No?
Okay,
Can I ask a clarification question?
yes, sure.
So would this be a non-owner occupied short-term rental or like on a form, how would I, that's all I'm asking. What questions should I ask? Like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
that's a good point.
because we can just put, is this owner occupied or non-owner occupied, check. But is that what we're meaning with this or is there something else? I just want to make sure that I'm understanding correctly.
We define owner occupied? We don't, do we? Well, what if it's Mr. Sherman back there with his LLC? And he lives on the property, so it's owner occupied.
Occupied.
Yeah,
What if we have a medical emergency and the owner is on the property, but he's away from the house?
well,
There's a what if for everything.
yeah, so, I mean, I think what I'm saying here is, and you feel free to disagree with it, I'm saying that there will be cases where if we don't require, could you guys take your conversation outside? Thank you. If there are cases where we don't require a Knox box, there may be bad results of, doors getting broken down. And one of those cases might be where it's a owner occupied place where they have a fire and the owner's gone. And I think the question for the board is, do we want to require a Knox box in all circumstances where that might happen? Or do we want to limit the Knox box requirement to certain cases? Do you have any thoughts, board?
Without adding to the application, it'd be the owner's discretion, whether they have a Knox box or the Knox box or not.
Well,
They gotta know that if that box isn't there, then we need access. We're coming in one way or another.
Right,
Yeah.
if
and they
it's,
are too.
If they put that,
They
couldn't we
do.
put it like a
It
little
is
checkbox on
strongly-
the application?
It is strongly recommended.
No
That was brought
knock
up
means-
at the last meeting.
so
Yeah,
we're not, what we've got here is a requirement that everybody has to have a Knox box, whether you want it or not. Which is not what you guys just said.
Well, I like Brooks' last statement that it's strongly recommended.
Okay,
Just means we can have, do you have a Knox box? Yes or no? We can put on the form, fire department strongly recommends.
That's
Mhm.
right.
And
Okay.
they, then by checking that box, they understand that something happens and just come down, that it's not the town's fault.
Right.
That this was
Understood.
discussed the last.
that's a
meeting.
good idea, but it's not appropriate here because the lead in to all these
Yeah.
A through M's or whatever it is, says that the registration forms will include the following information and statements.
Mhm.
Oh, I guess it could be information, but not on the
It's
form.
information.
Okay, it's information on the
Yeah.
form. Okay. So you will write that up as a description of
Were
a
we-
recommendation?
Are we keeping it in the location or would the board like to move it from L to something
Well, you
else?
could move it if you thought.
I'd like the board to tell me where they think it should be. put.
Oh,
Leave
it in.
I think, given that we've said that the registration form may include this or shall include this, that it is appropriate here.
So,
But maybe with the prefatory, since we're listing all the things that are required from the applicant, maybe put in extra words at the beginning that say the form shall describe, or it shall recommend. The registration form shall recommend the Knox box in all cases, something like that.
I added, so it's what I just did, and the board can tell me they like it or not, still the same location, so it's L is the correct number after we renumbered everything. It is strongly recommended that a Knox box, one per structure located on the exterior of the structure and visibly marked on site plans, is located on a short-term rentals for emergency response purposes.
Great. Everybody okay? Yep.
Yeah.
Dan? Thank you.
Yay.
Okay, good. We're there. My last thing I want to bring up, I'm sorry to keep you so long, folks, is in J2. Maximum occupancy is 2 adult persons per bedroom plus 1. Example of 2-bedroom STR equals 5-person occupancy. I propose to delete that addition or to skip that addition and not say this. And the reason that I want to say this, I want to delete it is that I think it's already required in some cases where you're attached to a on-site disposal system. Health regulations prescribe the maximum number of occupants, but I don't think that that kind of requirement belongs in a STR registration, particularly since there will be cases where people have designed their rentals for more than 2 people per bedroom. You know, if somebody's doing a short-term rental on a hunting cabin with 4 bunk beds, it's got 8 people in it. And they may have sewage disposal issues that they have to deal with the health department. But I don't think that it's our task to say that they cannot have more than 2 people per bedroom. Brooke, you had your hand up first.
Yes, so just the reason why I did put this here, because I mean, I just want to pose you all a condition, something that happens, right? So I do, being the land use department, me, I give somebody and allow them, give them a certificate of registration. They're on a sewer. They're advertising for 5 people in 1 bedroom. Not on a sewer, on a septic tank, a traditional septic tank where Title V requires. I don't, obviously, I hope that they're going to Tri-Town Health. Maybe I communicate that, but we don't catch it. And they have a problem with their septic. I don't want to be liable for not telling them about the Title V requirements somewhere.
Why would you be liable for not telling
Because
them about the Title V requirements?
Because I looked at their application and gave them
Who's gonna?
a certificate of registration. I'm not saying that would be how it goes. I just want to make sure that the idea of putting this in, especially this is already the septic section, that this is already the requirement. This is the state requirement. This needs to be happening. That way, if somebody looks through, they can't ignore this. They don't have to look for more places for that requirement when it is something that was just brought to our attention from health. That was just
Yeah.
I just want to pose that to
Thank
the
you for
board.
bringing that up, but my view on that is that this hypothetically you just described is of a person going into the STR business, potentially already in the STR business, who's already in violation of health requirements, who we have already told in this document is subject to inspection by health whenever the health department chooses to inspect them. And so I don't really see how we can do anything but harm by including this language. We'll be preventing people from having allowed bedroom arrangements. I mean, I've rented, I meet with my kids a couple times a year. We rent places in Pennsylvania, and it's very common for there to be a bedroom with 4 beds in it, and they advertise it for 12 people. Well, I didn't want to arrive there with 12, but that's the way they designed it. And I don't see if they're meeting the septic requirements, which I think is not our problem. I don't see why we should prevent that. All right, I've had my say. Dan, what do you think?
Well, on the application, who goes up, like they fill out the application and then the billing, Matt goes out next, right?
Yeah.
So couldn't you ask number of bedrooms?
Yeah.
And then number of guests?
Mhm.
And he has the application and he kind of looks and says, they're gonna have 25 guests with a 2-bedroom, that's crazy. And maybe it comes back where he doesn't sign off on it because it might not be safe or it may require.
Just to that point, I would not have the authority to enforce the Board of Health regulation. So the only thing I could do in that regard is, or to Tri-Town and say, hey, this is what I saw, and it would be out to that. I wouldn't be able to not sign.
Yeah, you could forward it up.
But I could absolutely.
But that's already in the bylaw. The bylaw already says if served by a septic system, the statement shall describe the number of bedrooms rated under its septic permit and the date that the septic tank was last pumped. So
I,
I don't see how we're gonna be having any secrets survive this process.
I kind of like the 2+1.
Okay,
Yeah, I do, only because sometimes people do abuse it and you don't even know. Well, there have been abuses many times. And I think if it was down there in writing, it would be better. That's my opinion.
so if somebody has an STR with 4 beds, sleeps 4 in a room, they can't register. They'd have to eliminate
Or-
2 of the beds.
Do we have any though that do that? I don't know.
I think we do.
This would also, they'd have to be on septic.
They have to be on septic,
That's true.
not just a
That's true.
regular.
Yes, yes.
And when you're on septic, if you have too many people, it does upset septic system. And I think that can be a problem.
Okay,
That's all.
all right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Peg. Dave,
Yeah,
you're
you're
gonna
welcome.
I think last week when we discussed this, we talked about who's gonna actually check to see if you were on town sewer. Suppose that, I mean, we have, and this is more red tape, we have proof that you had the septic tank pumped.
So this is, I think the answer is the registrant comes in and says, I'm filling out the form. Here's the part of the form that talks about whether there's a septic tank or a municipal sewer. My place is served by, pick one, I'll check the box. And if it says sewer, I mean, if it says septic system, then it also says, please tell us the number of bedrooms that are rated under your permit and the date the tank was last.
Yeah,
So they've got all the information in the system that we're gonna need to pass to the health department without this language that I'm challenging. I'm asking to delete, look at the draft, I'm asking to delete the sentence that's underlined, the new language. What I just described is the existing requirement that's already the law, that you
Right.
have to provide all of this information. Okay, so I think I understand Peg's position. You want to keep the language.
I do.
Dan, your view is,
Kind of, I'm gonna have to say it's okay to take it out.
Dave, your view is,
I'm gonna have to say the same thing, as you went through that, now, you explained more to me, that, let's take it out.
okay, so the vote is
Okay.
3-1 to take it out. Brooke, you take note of that, please. And that's the end of my very, very long and tiresome list. Thank you all for your patience. Now, I would suggest that I would entertain a motion from the board to direct Brooke to produce a new draft to submit to the selectmen.
It's completed.
It's already done?
I just made all those changes. Yeah, it's done.
Good for you.
Well, we're gonna give you authority to,
Well,
want to give you authority to do what you've already done. I think we should vote. We have to, because this is a bylaw in the zoning, as Jeremiah's very
oh,
properly
he's
reminds
gotta
us
do-
again and again,
Yes,
we need to make a report to the town.
right.
So I need a motion from somebody to say that the planning board reports this draft as amended favorably to the town for approval.
I'll do that.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion? Anybody in the audience want to extend this any further? No? Okay.
Just a point of order.
Yeah,
Good
Gordon.
for the town purposes, town meeting, could you say whether the vote was unanimous or 3-1 or 5-2 or whatever?
I will, as soon
That
as
would
I
be
have,
helpful. That would be helpful for town meeting. Thank you.
I will do that as soon as as soon as we hold the vote. Okay. Dan, your vote is
Aye.
Peg,
I'm voting that we submitted it. Yeah,
so your vote is aye.
yes.
Dave?
Aye.
Peter, aye. The vote is unanimous, and we will so report to the town meeting. Thank you, Gordon. Thank you all. This part of the meeting is concluded.
Yeah.
Susan's up. I'm here.
Sorry, it's so hard.
Oh,
So is the meeting adjourned?
no, no.
Okay, thank you.
I'm
I didn't think so.
I'm just.
Thank you.
A little mad, so I didn't say anything. No outbursts.
And so.
Well, hey, we had a reprimand, yeah. Last week you did, I know, so I was better this week.
It was 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago,
Or
feels
2
like
weeks.
that.
Oh,
Okay. Now we gotta get back here. Yeah, Historic Commission demolition delay, general bylaw. Conrad
yeah.
had a bunch. Did we print those out?
Yeah, it should be the very last thing in the packet. It's, do you want to read it on, is that, okay?
Right here.
Oh,
is
here we
this
are.
thing.
What?
Oh, my goodness.
That's, do you want to read it on record or did you like me to?
What are they actually looking for a endorsement from us? This would be under the general bylaws, right? Mm-hmm, okay.
And no, not really an endorsement, but just well, I guess I would love your.
Yeah.
So I read over, comment. And his, and answer the first question that I see is he's not liking the term, preferable, what is it, preferred? What does he call it? Preferred.
One thing.
Yeah,
Can we read this
Can
first?
you read it on record?
Maybe it should be significant.
Susan,
Just that-
On the record,
Yeah, that way.
okay, the first
Gordon,
one.
I can put it in the minute.
The first section says, I am not sure if the Lee Historical Commission placement of this proposed bylaw on the town meeting warrant was seeking advance comments from the planning board, perhaps a recommendation or an endorsement. Upon a detailed read of this demolition delay bylaw, I offer the following comments. In my opinion, the proposed bylaw appears to be overly broad and burdensome to current property owners and or prospective contract purchasers. It also seems very subjective in its definition of preferably preserved buildings, as well as administration of the bylaw as currently written. Comments on that? No?
Yeah, the use of preferably preserved isn't really that arbitrary. It's defined in significant buildings. That what would be preferably preserved would be found in what we define as significant building, which it is on the first page, I believe. The commission shall determine that a structure or portion thereof, which the commission shall identify, may be designated as, the criteria is. Sorry, the age of the structure, greater than 100. That it has been, if it's on the National Register of Historic Places, and we do have a few of those, the structure that would come under a demolition delay. And historical importance, the structure meets the criteria of it if it had of its character or interest. The person who did there or built it is of a notable character, heritage, cultural characteristics, is identified with a person or group of persons who had some significant influence. These things are the architectural significance, so that it's not just a loosey-goosey kind of historical significance. I do want to mention that the inventory that we have done of 350, Bob McIntosh did that back in 1980. And those do include the historically significant buildings. Those are the first ones he did do. And as Bill had said, maybe 10% of those would even come under any kind of regard or examination. Our goal is really just to be able to document buildings before they disappear, that buildings that are over 100 years old, before they disappear, so we can record them and have history of rather than have them just disappear. But as I say, most of the buildings that we come under that demolition delay have already been identified in our historical inventory.
I think I'll try to work my way through this and, as Conrad's comments, and then we'll go on with the rest of the board's comments. Going through the process as outlined, it tends to potentially hold up the demolition of existing buildings and any proposed redevelopment of a property for up to 12 months after the presumed position of the commission is to characterize this as preferably preserved building. Under the bylaws timeframe, the commission will make a determination via public notice and public hearing, first on whether a particular building is deemed significant, however, not stating the context or reasoning for their delay, other than building may be in excess of 100 years old. The bylaw text states that the commission has the ability to hold up demolition permit for up to 12 months, yet it does not state for what purpose or what specific actions the commission intends to employ, thus creating the delay during those 12 months while the fee owner or developer is stalled. Is the commission looking for actual architectural preservation or possibly inventory of items or photos? Or are they offering suggestions on methods of preservation and perhaps suggesting where these dollars could be coming from to effectuate such preservation? The bylaw does not suggest what the commission is seeking to do during those 12 months. Does the current landowner even want or even have the funds to facilitate a preservation effort, especially if the property owner is a senior citizen, or even if the property is subject to the pendency of an ongoing probate matter being resolved? The bylaw next is not clear that specifically is happening over those next 12 months if the commission decides that it is deemed a preferably preserved building. The bylaw states no permit for demolition of a building determined to be preferably preserved building shall be granted until all plans for future use and development of the site have been filed with the building commissioner and have found to comply with all laws pertaining to the issuance of building permit or for a parking lot, a certificate of occupancy for that site. All approvals necessary for the issuance of such a building permit or certificate of occupancy, including without limitation, any necessary zoning variances or special permits must be granted, and all appeals from the granting and of such approvals shall be concluded prior to the issuance of the demolition under this section. Now,
That's all part of right out of the Massachusetts.
Yep,
General Law.
under this provision, not sure what current property owner, developer, or builder is going to go through the entire cost of engineering, legal, and zoning process in advance, when potentially 100-year-old structure could eventually be adjudicated, there you go, and is being considered preferably preserved building, and that such redevelopment of property could conceivably be delayed for such length of time. If the town believes in the intent of this bylaw, perhaps the delay duration could be reduced to something more reasonable, like 3 months instead of 12 months as an approach. Better yet, perhaps the commission could proactively continue developing an assessment of their inventory list of 600 significant buildings from 300 already listed that could be subject to the preferably preserved status, such that current owners or prospective contract purchasers will be advised in advance through their due diligence of the Historical Commission's characterizations. After seeing the list, the current owner or potential contract purchaser, and then evaluate whether they want to continue with a demolition or significantly rebuild without having to advance soft cost dollars to continue. Just some observations and comments. Should be planning board consider offering a recommendation or endorsement of the proposed demolition delay bylaw drafted.
Okay,
It might have been shorter this way.
so where it's like,
I need a volunteer for public reading next.
the easy one to pick out is why it's 12 months. Many of them are 18 to 24. We chose 12 as sort of a,
Okay,
the reason being that if such a demolition delay were issued, the developer could just wait 3 months. It wouldn't be any big, deal. So they would just wait out the demo, and that's what has happened in other towns. That so many people now are trying to extend it from their 12 to 18. I think the intent that it's in here that the intent is to preserve and protect. It's not to prevent. If you have a property that's historically significant to the town of Lee, you would want it not to be knocked down without some kind of review. And again, most of the buildings, I would guarantee, but that's just, are already listed in the historical properties list, which the realtors know is in the MACRIS, Massachusetts State Database of Historical Properties. You go to MACRIS. I have been called, realtors have called me, and because they have found these properties that are already listed, the ones that are listed in the library are in a statewide database. So realtors have called me to ask if there would be a problem, not knowing that we don't really have a demolition delay, so it won't be a problem. So, but I guess I just want to emphasize it, the fact it's not to prevent. And no, not a lot of bureaucracy. It's the public, the thing would be the request for demolition would go to the building inspector. If the building is greater than 100, then they send it to the commission. If it is something of historical significance, then we say, yeah, let's delay it. But as I say, most of those properties are already listed in the inventory. We just don't want old houses to just disappear without our having record of their being here, who lived there and who built them. So.
thank you.
Any what other?
A comment on that is, yes, your board right now is preserving versus preventing. But sometimes an attitude of a board can change, and the bylaws are there, which could turn them into preventing. They could use it for evil versus good. And basically, in a nutshell.
Well, they would have to know because, so say the commission said, oh, yes, we'd like a delay. Well, then there's a public hearing to defend that, to argue that point. At which point the public then says, no, we don't want that. We would have to sort of go along with what the public would want.
Not necessarily. Seen it.
If there was, generally speaking, you have.
Buck, I would like to see him continue on with the list of these houses that are going to qualify for protection. Because we can't, some of them are, they're historically significant to the town. We may find out some of them aren't, or even aren't savable.
Now, there is a caveat in here that the building commissioner, if he deems that the building is not safe, he can issue that demolition delay without.
Times changed,
That's in that. Oh.
No, that's mine.
That's you.
That's my hand.
I hate to hold up any kind of new construction for a year and then find out we could tear it down and the owner, the person that's gonna do the work says, nah, I'm not interested anymore. So I mean, it has to, I definitely agree that you have to move in with more buildings that you find that are historically significant to the town.
Okay, I agree with that.
And
We
once
would limit it
once
to-
that, we look at structuralize, are they structurally sound to save?
Mhm.
If they meet those two pieces of criteria, okay, then we say, okay, now, if I come in there, I wanna tear this building down. Now, I'm gonna have to jump through some hoops because,
If we were to go back and say that it has to be on our inventory of historical houses.
well, that's why I believe you need to keep moving, and you're in the right direction. But keep moving on, making a list, your list even bigger.
Mhm.
Uh,
Is there any way we can agree to get notification when it asks up for demolition?
well, I think this all
don't
points
think
to
that'd be
one
true,
house
uh,
on Main Street that disappeared
No,
by
actually,
St.
there's
Mary's.
something else.
Yeah. Let's keep Peter,
Okay.
thoughts on
I
that?
do, but Gordon had his hand up for a while. Now it's
That
down.
was
Oh, separate.
Gordon's hand yellow. That was my cursor over
Oh,
Gordon's screen.
okay.
Sorry, Gordon.
Yeah, I really like the concept of trying to slow down a demolition of somebody who comes in and wants to bulldoze, 3 or 4 lots for a big new thing. Especially if it's historically significant, but I'm a little concerned about possibility of breadth and how implementation could change with future boards. So I want to try a sort of a Madisonian thing here with you. What about a process whereby you announce in advance, let's say, the 300 most important buildings in Lee that are eligible for treatment, and get the selectmen to put that on a list that's declared in advance as preferably preserved, that then the building department could have and know in advance. It wouldn't be a discretionary decision made after the application for demolition, but instead would be a known prerequisite to any demolition permit. Is that a workable system? I like it because it involves more than just the Historic Preservation Board.
Mhm.
It involves the selectmen in sharing the responsibility for this and not making it too broad.
So we would give a the houses that would fall into our area of concern.
I would say, did you say there were 300 that were
There's about 350 now.
350? Okay.
Yes.
So you give a list, a nominee list, the selectmen, and say, this is our nominee list of houses that we think should be preferably preserved or should be, where demolition should be delayed. And then after.
Not all those houses would qualify. We wouldn't want all those.
Oh, okay. So why can't, really my question is, why can't you give us a list in advance of which of those houses are qualified? Too much work?
Well, I don't know.
Oh.
You have to ask the commission, about going through the inventories and coming up with a list.
You-
But yeah.
Matt, any thoughts on this one?
I actually do like the suggestion of having that we can kind of, if the building permit comes in, we can weigh it against that, let's see what it says.
So if I give the list, then,